blue sky tide, help me clear my mind, full of nothing I need, no. I look up sometimes, and to my surprise, I can finally breathe, whoa. It's a real thin line between wasting time and getting some peace, though. Oh, the depths I dive, trying to finally find out what it all means. I'm faithful, inner demons, give me something to believe in. I've been stumbling around the ether, I keep wondering why I'm here.
Alright, this is going to be the full graphics install tutorial for, in my opinion, the best graphics packs combination that you can get without killing your frame rate and still having a good looking game. Now, I do need to start off with an apology, saying the rest of this video is recorded with my headset microphone because my idiot self forgot to switch it over when I was recording the video, so the audio quality is about to go down dramatically. Again, I'm sorry for that, but yeah, you may notice my desktop is different. It's Windows 11. Because of that, I have a fresh install of FiveM and GTA. I recommend doing that. And I tried to use Steps Recorder to do this as well, so you could get like a step-by-step picture screenshot tutorial. It didn't work very well at all, actually, because of how long the tutorial ended up being, so that doesn't actually apply. Sorry guys who have bad internet connections, you're just gonna have to watch the video in like audio-only mode or something, I don't know. Anyway, I'll get to the rest of the video. So the very first thing we're gonna install is gonna be Reshade, because Reshade is one of the most valuable, I think, mods you can install for FiveM. It's going to be doing a lot of different coloring changes to the skybox, to just really everything. Reshade's amazing. Now you'll see right next to the application on my desktop, we've got my preset file. That's going to be linked in the description below. There's going to be a Google Drive link for all my mods. When you go in there, you're going to see visual, and then you're going to see Reshade. Follow that pathway and it'll lead you right to this file. I had a lot of people asking on the previous video how to find that. That's how you find that. So Reshade, we're going to open it up. We're going to hit Browse. When we go to Browse, you're going to want to find wherever your GTA is on your computer. For me, that's going to be on my E drive. Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, Grand Theft Auto 5. If you have it through Steam, it's going to be a similar pathway. It's just wherever your Steam library is. Now you're going to want to find this folder. Once you find this folder, click Open. I lied. Click GTA 5 EXE and then click open. We're going to make sure we check every single thing on here, all the presets, because we don't want to be missing any files, and by default it should be DirectX 10, 11, 12, but just make sure that's checked. We're going to let it do its thing. As soon as it's done, it says we can close the tool, and Reshade's installed just like that. So let's go ahead and open up our file browser, if it will come up here. Hello, there we go. And then we'll go to this PC. We're going to find that same folder again because we're going to need it a few times throughout this tutorial. And just for right now, go ahead and drop this Reshade preset file into that folder right there. It's not going to be hurting anything there. It'll be out of the way and you'll always be able to find it. Alright, so let's get on to the next part, which I'll go ahead and do the sound mod since we're right here. So this is also going to be found in the Google Drive links, just going to be under sound mod. So in your folder, you want to go to x64, audio, SFX, and then we're going to drag this resident.rpf into that folder and hit replace. That's for the sirens that I use. So we got those two things out of the way. Go ahead and start extracting our FiveM stuff. First one's going to be a the first three are going to be Terrov series effects. This will be linked in the description as well. We're going to be using the Explosion, Fire, and Indian Ocean effects. So we're going to go ahead and right click on this. And it's a little bit different than Windows 10. We'll open when we're here. And we will extract to our desktop. Perfect. That was a little gross. I don't like the white screen. But once you got that extracted, you're going to want to open that up. And then open up another file explorer. Get them side by side if you got room on your desktop. And we're going to want to go to wherever your FiveM's installed at. Now for me, that's on my C drive. It's going to be under Users, whatever user you are. App Data. Now if you can't see that, make sure you go to View and Show Hidden Items. Local. And FiveM. And there's your application data folder. There's other ways to get there. That's just how I prefer to do it. So once you're there, you're going to want to, on the explosion effects folder, open that up. We're going to ignore the README because we know what we're doing, and we're just going to follow the pathway. So citizen, citizen, common, common. You get the picture. And we'll notice that under data, we don't actually have an effects folder, so we can just drag and drop that entire thing over. Then we're going to back out to your citizen and go to platform on both. Data on both. And then we're just going to drag this explosion.ymt file over. And boom, just like that, our explosion effects installed. Next up is going to be the fire effects. So I'm going to go ahead and extract this as well. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing, follow the pathway. So we'll go back to our application data folder. Citizen, citizen. And this one's just common. Data on both. And then now since we have the effects folder, we're going to open it instead of replacing the whole thing. And we're going to drag the file over. Back out just to make sure we didn't miss anything, which we didn't. Perfect. Next up is going to be the Indian Ocean. This is going to be the clear water, or if you prefer a little bit less than clear water, I just prefer the clearest version. So we'll back out to our application folder again. Open this up after we extract it. And I prefer vanilla waves. You might want smaller waves if you don't really like it, but in my opinion, vanilla waves are pretty awesome, and I just like how they look. So vanilla waves, and then max clarity is going to be the clearest. The other ones are going to be less and less clear, but still more clear than vanilla, because vanilla has that like fog effect. Citizen on both. Common. Data. We're just going to drag the whole levels folder over. Perfect. Alright, so that's going to be our free packs, the ones that don't cost you any money to install, and they're just FiveM mods. Nothing went into our GTA folder besides Reshade, which will show how to set that up once we actually launch our game. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the more premium packs. First one is going to be Revo 2.0. This pack is amazing. It's going to add all sorts of buildings, all sorts of billboards. Essentially, it's replacing the LA Revo 1.0 in my last video and the LA billboards. It's replacing both of those packs. Now, I will say this is also the biggest pack that I have. And I'm currently editing these files. This is the one part of the video that's not 100% done, but it's done enough for release. So by default, the 2.0 has several buildings that they've added in that for certain RP scenarios, because I play in an RP server, they can be an issue. For instance, the construction building. Normally, this is over by Southside. A lot of people during police chases will drive up that building and then jump down to Adams Apple or onto Del Perro Freeway. With this mod, it actually finishes that building and has a finished building there. Some of those buildings I've taken out and I've removed buildings like that. I removed the 777 building, which is in a parking lot down by Legion Square, and I removed the Aeon building, which blocks the red garage jump. I've done all sorts of things like that with this mod pack to just optimize it for RP, because that's what I primarily use it for, but there are a few things that need to be tweaked still, like some floating satellite dishes that were on top of some buildings that I removed. If you want my edited versions of these files, whether they're finished or not, just send me a DM on Discord with proof of purchase that you bought LA Revo 2.0. I'm going to want to see a screenshot showing you bought it, and then I'm also going to check in their Discord to make sure you have that role. Otherwise, I'm not sending you these files because I'm not going to run into issues. If you just want the base version of the files, just download it from the Patreon. That'll be linked below as well, and you can just install it just like we're about to do. So, when we open it up, we're going to immediately see, let's see here, we're going to immediately see client side and server side. This is a client side FiveM install tutorial, so we will be messing with client side, not server side. But if you do want to put these server side in your server, feel free. Inside client side, you're going to have 8 files. You're going to have part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, I believe one of these is going to be some extra vegetation. Another one of these is going to be some extra, extra props and stuff. We'll go through here and I'll continue to optimize and tweak these folders. I think I took most of the vegetation out, but this is going to be what you want to do. You're going to want to take all these folders, or all these files, you're going to copy them, Control C or right click copy if that's your preference. And then in your FiveM application data, you're going to go to mods, and you're just going to paste them in there. This might take quite a while if your computer doesn't have a solid state drive, because this is about, what does it say? I don't know how many gigs, but it's a lot. I think it's like something like 17 gigs. But this is one of the main mods in the video. So once this copy's over, we'll get right back. Okay, so now that you have your LA Revo installed, we can go ahead and close that. And then we're going to move on to QuantV. Now, QuantV is going to go in your GTA 5 folder. Go ahead and extract that. If I can open it up, there we go. So in QuantV, you're going to have a few different things. You're going to have install, uninstall, and optionals. So we'll start with the optionals folder just because we already have our mods folder open. So under optionals, you're going to have an EMB performance quality preset, which is just going to have these presets in it. We don't need to mess with that. We're going to use the default preset, which is very high, and then we're going to tweak it on our own. And you have your optional presets. I don't use anything under visual presets. I've tried them. I didn't like how they looked. It's just completely preference. I don't have any issues with black reflections. If you do, this might be something for you. But I do like running brighter emergency lights. So this is going to be FiveM application data and add-ons instead of mods. If you don't have an add-ons folder like I do, because it's a fresh install, just go ahead and make one. Right click and try to fight your computer. Jesus. Alright, new folder, and then add-ons. No uppercases, no spaces. Inside this folder, you're going to want to put over either bright lights or very bright lights. Now, I honestly, QuantV just updated. This was updated on the 31st of October, so on Halloween, and I'm filming this on November the 2nd. I've only tried the normal bright lights, and I thought they were still a little bit dull, so I'm going to try the very bright lights. Just keep in mind you might lose a couple FPS here and there because light effects, that's what they do. So we'll back out over here. The chromatic abbreviation removed, this is going to be something we have to do with OpenIV, but we are going to do that essentially without rambling too much about it. Instead of it rendering like red, blue, and green filters over the top of each other, it just renders one picture, which is not only good for performance, it's also good for visual effects. So, disable blue lens. That's going to be going in our add-ons folder as well. This is going to take off the blue hue that goes across the whole city by default, and it's just going to make everything look a lot more crispy. Let's see, disable volumetric lights at night equals better performance. As you can see, we are going to use that because volumetric lights, while they do look really nice, we're playing FiveM, which is already a very clunky and terribly optimized application, so we want to get all the performance we can get out of it. Enable Cortana light in vehicles. We want to use this, but this is an OpenIV thing we're going to have to install as well. But the reason we want to use this is because on some vehicles with QuantV, you can get weird red lighting on the car and in your skybox, or random like headlights that pop up where there's not actually a headlight on the vehicle. This essentially fixes that. Long draw distance, you don't really want that unless you have like a 3090, because yeah, it does what it says it's going to do. It makes your render distance really long, and while that may look good, it's going to kill your FPS. Okay, so the next step is going to be motion blur remove. This is also going to be an OpenIV file. We will install that in just 1 second. You definitely want to do this. Motion blur is disgusting. You shouldn't use it in any game, and GTA actually forces you to use it, so this is a workaround to disable that. Puddles covering the ground, floor is a mirror. This is going to be an add-on, I believe. It is. I personally don't use this just because it makes the whole road glossy and reflective, and I prefer to see individual puddles that are glossy and reflective, because when you get the whole road glossy plus the on-screen rain effect, it just can become a lot to look at. So I personally don't like it, but that is completely personal preference. So let's go ahead and get OpenIV here. So I don't really, I don't actually have it yet. Because I just installed Windows 11, so we'll go ahead and show that as well. We're gonna just search OpenIV on Google, and we're going to download. Be careful with these sketchy links on websites. Gotta make sure you know what you're clicking. We're gonna download OpenIV here. Download it to our desktop, and then we'll go ahead and run it. Okay, we'll make a desktop icon. That's fine. Yeah. And we'll let it do its thing. Shouldn't take too long. We'll be right back here in a second. Perfect. Okay, we can delete the exe. So now that we have OpenIV installed, we can go ahead and open it. We're going to say this is Windows for GTA 5, well, GTA 5 for Windows rather. And then we're going to be prompted rather to find your GTA 5 folder. So go ahead and navigate whatever pathway that is for you, and hit select folder once you find it. If you do it correctly, it's going to say successfully GTA 5 exe version blah 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 can work with this file, and you'll hit continue. Something about backing up your files. I've never had any issues with OpenIV, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. But yeah, if you are doing heavy modding, then definitely do that. But it's not what we're doing today. Okay, so once we get it open up, first thing you're going to want to do is click on ASI Manager, and you're going to install all 3 of these. This is essentially going to, just leave this one default, hit yes. This is essentially going to allow us to modify game files. So once you do that, button right next to it is going to be the package installer. This is going to be what we use to install these OpenIV files over here. So we're going to want to go to our desktop and find our QuantV, optionals, optional presets, and then we're going to install the things in here that were the OIV files. There's the chromatic abbreviation. I don't know. I'm dyslexic. Whatever the hell that is, we're going to install it. And we're going to install it to the game folder. Because we're doing this for FiveM, anything you install to the mods folder is going to only work for single player, while the game folder will work for FiveM, depending on what you're installing. We'll go ahead and close. Package installer again. And then we're going to do the lights on vehicles. Game folder as well. right, the motion blur removed. Some of these might take longer than others depending on how big the pack is. If anything takes really long, I'll just speed it up in the video. So it doesn't really matter the order that you do this in. I just did it in that order just because it made sense for what we're doing. But the very next thing we're going to want to do is the actual QuantV main install itself. So we'll go ahead and install QuantV. Now what this is going to do is it's going to install a EMB to your GTA, but it does not work without EMB. It just has some files. So we're going to then go online and grab the original EMB mod for GTA, and we're going to put that in our GTA folder, but we're not going to replace any files that it asks us to. We're just going to put the files that it's missing. 1 second and we'll get on with that. Installation succeeded. Go ahead and minimize that because I don't know if we're going to need it for the rest of this mod. And one thing that we did miss under the install was there's going to be an add-ons file for QuantV. Without this, none of the QuantV effects are going to work inside of FiveM, so make sure that's there. We can go ahead and close that folder. We'll keep this one open. And let's go ahead, go online and find EMB for GTA 5. Once we find that, at the very bottom left, you're going to see 0.456. And we're going to hit download. Download is completed. I believe that went to my downloads folder. It did. We want this out here. And we'll go ahead and extract this. Perfect. Honestly, delete that. Okay. So inside here, you're going to see a lot of stuff. You don't need to mess with the SDK. You don't want to go to either of these things. You just want to open up wrapper version. And then your Grand Theft Auto directory folder. Inside here, you're going to copy everything except for the bottom two. And you're going to paste it in here, and you're going to say skip the files that it wants to replace, because we don't want to replace any files. We're going to go to emissaries, and we're going to do the same thing. Copy, and paste, and skip these files. Now, if you do EMB first and then install QuantV on top of it, you won't have to skip files, but that's just the order we did it in, so that's how we're going to do it. I'm just going to come and post edit here so you get a little bit more of that high quality microphone audio. NVE actually released an update on the 31st of October, and when I was filming this, I didn't have the updated version, so I'm just going to butt in here and refilm this section, but with the updated version for you guys. So let's get out of that. Alrighty, so I have two files from NVE. I have the regular NVE package that you get for the $10 tier, and then I also have this Parallax Roads package, which you get for the $15 tier, and this is going to add things like smoke coming out of the, out of the sewage drains down in Legion Square, and like a few better looking roads, even better than 2.0, so and it does mash quite well with 2.0, I have tested it. So we're going to start with the regular FiveM package. It's going to come with this file mail, or depending on where you download, you're going to get a zip file. I extracted that, and it came with all these other zip files, a lot of which I don't need, but we want the FiveM, so extract that as well, and then you'll get this folder right here. Inside the folder, you got EMB required. We're not going to touch it. You have main package, which we are going to go in and add some things. So animated lights, we want to drag that over and replace the destination. I personally don't use vegetation, any added vegetation, because it's really bad for frames. The ATM animations, that can cause issues for you, but if it does, just remove this file. If it doesn't, I recommend using it. White street lights are going to look terrible in my opinion, and the car colors, if you like that sort of thing, like modified car colors, you can, but I just run vanilla car colors and let QuantV and everything else decide that. I also do not run the NV.RPF either, because I run QuantV, and NV plus QuantV together are not, they don't really get along too well. Alright, so in optional add-ons, we're going to have stuff, a whole bunch of stuff we don't need. So enhanced motion blur, no, don't run that in any game, it's disgusting. The brighter emergency lights, if you're not running the brighter lights from QuantV and you like how these look because they are a little bit brighter, you can run these. I personally will not be doing that today. The Roads overall pack, I would not recommend running. It causes issues at Legion Square, and it makes the roads kind of glitch out a little bit. Weapons overall pack, sure thing. Go ahead and drag that over. Weapon reticle and damage, you don't really need that unless you're in a server that doesn't already disable that, which most RP servers already have that pre-disabled. Darker Nights, this can be something you run. I probably will try it later today, but I haven't been running it. It's basically going to make your night sky a pitch dark black instead of like a dark blue / gray. That's completely personal preference. But in order to get it visible at nighttime, you may have to turn your brightness up to the point where during the day it's like blinding. So that's why I'm personally not running that right now, but you can play around with that one. More car engine smoke. This is something that's brand new with the newest update. I want that. I think that's sick. If my car is smoking or if a criminal's car is smoking, I want to be able to see it, obviously, and this is going to make it easier to see. The interior overhauls, neither of those I run because it's just, we already have server-side interiors there, so it causes issues. Northern Lights, you 100% want this. It's beautiful. It was in the montage at the beginning of the video. And then the Halloween and Christmas content packs, I'd recommend keeping these around. You know, if you're doing like a Halloween or Christmas, thing, they can be really cool to add in. The only things I've noticed is it adds like snowmen or jack-o'-lanterns over by the jewelry store, but it does other things across the map. It's only really useful during those times of year. And then these two resources at the bottom, you don't need to worry about. Those are server-side resources. Alrighty, and next up is going to be the Parallax Roads from NVE. This is going to be the $15 supporters, the alpha tier. I really like what this does to the sewage drains. I really like what it does to some of the highways. It looks, in my opinion, better than the Revo 2.0 roads, but it still keeps my favorite part about the Revo roads, which is the crosswalks. So you don't have to use this, but if you do, it's quite simple. You extract the file, it's going to be 1 RPF, and you just add that to your mods folder, and then you have it. It's going to be called the same thing as the other roads overall pack, but this one is much different. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that might be everything. So just to recap, we did Reshade, we did Explosion effects, Fire effects, Clear Water, LA Revo 2.0, QuantV, NVE, the 5-rail graphics, and of course EMB. We didn't quite do it in that order. I think EMB was up here. We also did a sound pack as well. So go ahead and clean up our recycle bin, and let's go ahead and launch FiveM as well. Okay, so as soon as FiveM launches, if you installed Reshade in the beginning of the video correctly, you should see this little bar across the top that says press home to start the tutorial. We don't really care about tutorials, but we'll go ahead and press home and then skip the tutorial. Immediately at the very bottom, we're going to click Performance Boost, which is going to throw this into just less stuff in your face and will help your FPS a little bit, but mostly it's just less stuff in your face. And you're going to immediately be like, well, this looks normal. There's nothing weird about how FiveM looks right now. That's because we haven't selected the preset. So we're going to click this bar right here, and we're going to go to wherever our preset is stored, which is going to be in our GTA5 folder, which nicely, Reshade has already put me there. So we'll click on RZ NV4 and hit select. We're going to untick border, and this is how I used to run this preset. I don't run it like this anymore just because it's a little bit too much for my eyes. So what I run now is HDR off and levels off. And I just run Vibrance and Luma Sharpen. FXAA I also sometimes run, but that is completely preference. It's just anti-aliasing is all that is. But Luma Sharpen is going to make everything look crispy, like all the edges, especially when you have motion blur turned off. And Vibrance, well, you can see what it does on the main menu. It just makes everything look more colorful for colorblind people like myself. But I don't run HDR, and I don't run levels just because it was too much for me. I'm also really quick going to rebind this to insert just because I prefer it to be on insert for my reshade menu instead of home. And once you do that, you can click whatever key you have it bound to. What the hell? Please go away. Please. There we go. And it'll go away. Before we do, let's check our FiveM settings. So, fix UI lag at high GPU usage. I used to use this. I don't use it now. It causes more problems than it fixes unless your graphics card is absolute potato. And if your graphics card is a potato, you probably shouldn't be following this video in the first place. Displaying progress when downloading in-game stream assets, that might be nice, but honestly, after you play on a server 2 or 3 times, it pretty much has everything downloaded, so I don't have that turned on because it doesn't really bother me. If you're having audio stuttering, fix hitches at high frame rate can fix that, but I'm pretty sure it also will cap your frame, as it says frame limiter right here, and we don't want a frame limiter. And then we also have automatically recenter the vehicle using handbrake. I have this turned off, and the reason is because I use handbrake a lot, and I don't like the camera auto recentering. It makes it hard to see. And then turning off camera shake is also really nice. We like dark mode, and we like turning off the background music, but you probably already knew all of that. So F8 connect, type in our server IP, and we will load in. This is going to take a second, so I will speed this up. So upon loading into your server, whatever your loading screen is, you'll know you did the mods correct if you see in the bottom left 13 mod packs loaded. Lucky number 13, that's just the amount we installed. If you don't see that, you probably didn't put it in your mods folder. Let this finish loading. This is my first time connecting to the server on this OS, so it is going to take a little bit longer than usual. Alright, we're gonna get this Toko VP thing in my face, so as soon as we get actually flown in, I will tab out and fix that. And all of my roads and pretty much my entire city is probably still rendering in, since we just put like 20 bajillion mods in the game all at once. So just be patient. If you don't have a SSD, be extra patient. Just let it do its thing, and just give it a second. Alright, and we are loaded in. Character might be a bit scuffed here. Hopefully the clothing's not fucked, but we are gonna fly in at... Let's do pink cage. Hopefully no one messes with us. Let it render here. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Alright, so we'll go to graphics. So ignore suggested limits. We're gonna turn that on because, yeah, fuck the suggested limits. Whatever resolution you're running, make sure you're on DirectX 11. FXAA, MSAA, you want both of those off. Sorry. Pause game and focus loss doesn't really matter because FiveM doesn't do that, but I'm going to turn it off. VSync, make sure that's also off. Population density and variety, you want those all the way to the left because these are controlled server side, so there's no point having them turned up and stressing out your computer. Distance scaling, this is quite nice to have turned up, but I'm just going to keep it up 1 tick with the mods I'm running. I've had the best experience with it on 1 tick, and not any more than that. Extended texture budget. This is pretty important to turn all the way up, as long as your little bar at the top there doesn't go in the yellow or red. Now I'm in the yellow right now, but that's because some of my other settings are a little bit high, so definitely turn this as high as you possibly can with everything turned down. So textures. I'm going to run normal textures, and I recommend you do the same thing. If you've got a 30 series card, you probably can run high textures, but even with my 2070 Super, when playing in an RP server, anything above normal just causes issues with texture loss, and it's just all bad. So shader quality, you want that very high. Shadow quality, I run high. Reflection quality, ultra, because EMB makes the reflections on cars and rain really nice, so I run ultra for that. MSAA Fourier reflections, turn that off. There's no point in running it. Water I max out because it doesn't really do much. Particles I turn all the way down because they look like trash anyway. Grass quality, make sure this is on normal. Even if you have a 30 series card, probably run this on normal. Just because grass and FiveM do not get along, especially with the inventory system. With your shadows, this is preference, but for me, I've been running softer on my shadows. I like a nice video game crispy edge on my shadows, and softer gives me that crispy edge without it looking too much like a clean edge. That's just what I prefer. Post effects, make sure this is ultra or very high. I'm gonna run ultra because it looks better, but you want this turned up to one of those two settings because of QuantV, it needs that to work. Motion blur strength, make sure that's all the way down. Even though we disabled it, still just make sure it's all the way down. Depth of field effects off. We don't want depth of field. Anisotropic filtering, X16 is good. Ambient occlusion, I'm turning this off to save frames. This gave me plus 10 FPS when I turned it off. Same thing with tessellation. Tessellation didn't really affect my frames, but it did affect the dropping of the frames, if that makes sense. Like it didn't immediately notice a frame impact, but over the course of several days of playing, it was better with it turned off. And then we're going to go ahead and apply, and we're going to have to restart our game. You'll notice it loaded a lot faster, and this time we're not in the abyss because everything's starting to render in. Go ahead and click on our our character there. I'm flying again at pink cage because I don't think anyone will bother us. And before I do anything, I'm turning this music off so I don't get DMCA'd. There. Okay. So under advanced graphics, we have a few things to change. Make sure you're set to full screen in there, not full screen exclusive, not window borderless, but full screen. Because when you tab out, it will keep this window open like it's a borderless window, but it will run with the optimizations of full screen. It's just better. Whatever resolution you're running. Long shadows turned off, high resolution shadows turned off. And high detail streaming while flying, I personally have this turned on. Now with your extended distance scaling, this one is very FPS depending. The more you turn this up, the more it's going to hurt your frames, but the further away your roads are going to render in. So if your roads are like yellow at a distance, you definitely want to turn this up a little bit. For me, the sweet spot is turning it up about 3 to 4 clicks. I'm going to try 4 for right now, and I'll turn it down if I need to. But that's just where I run it. So that's the settings there. Now we need to mess with our QuantV. Shift-Enter should open that window. If it doesn't open the window, I'll show you a workaround, because like FiveM and QuantV like broke whenever they released the September update. But if you've installed all the files I've done in this video as is, that window should open no problem. So in this window, keep in mind anytime you click, you are going to punch, so make sure you're not standing next to somebody. You're going to see FPS limiter, which is turned off by default. We want to keep that off. Force VSync, which is turned off by default. We also going to keep that off. I'm just minimizing these. And then you're going to have your shader setting, which by default is going to be on the very high settings. We want to keep use effect on, because that turns off QuantV if we turn that off. Post-processing, we want that turned on. Bloom, we want that turned on. Original aberration and lens distortion, I don't mess with that, personally. I don't know exactly what that does, but I don't mess with it. We do like post-pass shader. That's going to be the on-screen like rain and freezing effects when those weather effects come around in games. We want to keep that turned on. Adaption, turn that off. The bloom, I turn that off as well, because we're already running original bloom, and bloom causes some weird glitchy stuff with police lights. Lens, turn it on. Depth of field off. Ambient occlusion, turn that off. You'll notice my FPS just went up by about 15 with that turned off. It does look really nice, but yeah, it's just not worth it. Skylighting, we have that turned on. Subsurface scattering off. Detailed shadow off. Normal mapping off. Sprites, I'm not sure what they do, so fuck it, we turn them on. Rain, reflection, shore, and then water, have all those 3 turned on as well. I'm gonna disable sprites. I think that, no, I think sprites are like underwater reflections. I do want that turned on. Alright, so, you're gonna want to go ahead and hit apply change. I missed. Hit apply changes. Your game's gonna like try to crash on you, but it won't, I promise. Hit save configuration. Your game's gonna do the same bullshit that it just did. And then shift-enter to close. There we go. Shift-enter to close that menu. Shift-enter again to reopen it. Make sure everything's stuck. Make sure it has the same settings you just saved. If it didn't, you may have to do that process again and mess with it until it does stick. But for us, yeah, it's looking like it didn't stick for us. So let's go ahead and try this again. So bloom, turn it off. Ambient occlusion, turn it off. Sprites and water, turn them on. I think that's right. Just double checking everything. So this time we're gonna hit save. Then we'll hit apply. Then we'll close this menu, reopen it, and this time it's stuck. So it's save configuration, then apply, not the other way around. My bad. Once we're done with that, you can go ahead and close the menu with Shift-Enter again, and for the most part, your game's going to be pretty good.